That's right. Everybody else. They seem like 70 to 3 on top.
All right. Last call. Everything's still good in the back? Excellent. Wonderful.
If I can start this path. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was.
Not again.
My elbow's all.
Yeah. That's right. I've already done 30 reps.
Yeah.
Good.
Well.
You know what?
Yeah.
Shit.
10-minute kind of cut up of the wall. Just like that's how it is. A bunch of times, oh, I will ran this really
He has 2 younger brothers.
You know what happened.
He's right there. That's usually the case.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just went back to the
They have the next job. When I know this share of character, you say, he was that senior Christian.
Arby's are probably in Arby's.
So, oh, they obviously not. Where is it? Because there was that senior Christian. So, it'd be interesting to see how that.
You just want to support the
How
house.
was it? How should be interesting all the way around. Did you read the athletic story? But I thought it was interesting because Dave was not. Forget it. It mentioned. That's literally the right. So I don't know how the market would do that.
Wasn't really necessary. I tried to stay on watch.
And so, he's come in and he started to recruit.
All right, folks, thanks for showing up again. We'll open up the questioning. Front row left, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. I know you said after the game you weren't sure about the severity of Mayan's injury. How much can you tell us about that? Is it serious? Is it long term?
So I think what we got to do is stick to the policy with the injuries. We've kind of gotten loose with that, and that's my fault. I think we got to go back to the availability report. That we we kind of built our policy last year, and so it's because once I start going down the road with one person, then it goes to somebody else, and I just think that it's the right thing to do to protect the players. That being said, on Saturday, that was a very strange thing that happened. He was over by the sideline, and when he got to the sideline, the chain screw didn't drop the chains, so his hand and his arm got caught up in the chain marker, and he got banged up, and so. I don't really have an update on him because I feel like once I give an update on one, I got to give it on somebody else. But I guess the best thing I can say is it's not serious.
Running backs. How obviously winning the game is the most important thing this week. How important is it to get Chip and Dallin some game reps this week if possible?
Yeah, I want to get all those guys healthy. I feel like when Mayan's been out, Trey's kind of been out, and vice versa, and so we're looking for a full group in that unit because we're going to need these guys here down the stretch in November. So, they've done some good things, but, we're going to need them all. And to your point, it'd be really nice to get, Dallin and Chip out in the field and get them some work as well. But they've been practicing well and they deserve to get on the field. But I'm looking forward to having all those guys ready to roll for us.
Just to follow up on that, are they supposed to drop the chains there? Was there something that didn't happen correctly with the chain gang?
Yeah. Anytime, somebody goes over there, they're there to drop the chain. So, and they put mine in a tough spot there. Yeah.
Coach, the first playoff ranking comes out tonight. Will you watch it? Do you think the Buckeyes should be in the top four?
I will not watch it. I'll be at practice, and if I'm not at practice, we'll be watching the film, getting ready for Northwestern. Do I think we deserve to be in the top four? Absolutely. Do I think it matters all that much right now? No. What matters is beating Northwestern.
Deep right, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Ryan, forgive me if I stumble through this. I'm trying to word it correctly, but how much during the course of a game like Saturday do you, as far as play calling goes, have to measure what you need to do to win the game that you're in versus what you want to accomplish and be ready for potentially bigger games and season goals later?
Yeah, when you go to Penn State, the number one goal is to win a game. That's it, period. And very, impressed with just how well we took care of the ball in that game. When you win the turnover battle 4-0, in a game like that, your chances of winning schematically go through the roof, and that's our plan to win. And when you're in those matchup games, we focus on three things. One, play great defense. How do you play great defense? You run the football and stop the run. Two, the turnover battle. And three is scoring touchdowns in a red zone. Four is special teams and winning the special teams battle. So there were some areas I thought we did a really good job of, some other ones that we got to clean up. But no, I mean, when you take care of the ball the way we did and then turned it on in the fourth quarter, I thought that was excellent. There's some things certainly we want to clean up and do better. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it comes down to execution. And we've got to do a better job of that. And, we know that if we want to get to where we need to go in terms of our goals, then we'll have to keep building on that. But again, like you said, I think you have to measure, when you're in a game like that, the amount of risk. You can say, well, throw it every down, and then the ball gets tipped, and all it takes is a couple turnovers, and as you can see, what happens. So, when it's time to put the pedal to the metal like we did, I thought we did a great job of that, and so we just keep growing and keep building.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Brian, along those same lines, I think you guys were 100% run and pistol and under center. How do you balance doing what you guys do and doing it well versus making sure that you're not showing too many tendencies of taking your hands?
Well, I think when we were in the pistol 5 times, and 4 out of those 5 were efficient runs. So we were efficient 80% of the time in pistol runs. So I think the question probably is, why don't we run the ball more in the pistol?
Third row, right, Cameron T. Robinson, the athletic.
Off that, it looked like you guys ran the ball pretty well in the second half, even taking away Trayvon's big run. Mitch had a good run at the end. You guys were a little more successful then. Was there something that changed in that second half compared to that first half?
I think we got into the rhythm of the game. I think anytime you're in a game like that, there's a feeling of you want to wear the opponent down, and I think we got that going, and I think we got some tempo going, and I think you felt that a little bit in that game, and I kind of felt that the week before too in the Iowa game. It was those. Listen, these are good Big Ten defenses that make you work and challenge and stop the run, and we're not all of a sudden just going to go pass happy. We're not doing that. We're going to be balanced, and when it's time to go, we go. But when you're playing with a good defense too, it's a different feel as well. You're in these matchup games, and no, I felt like in the fourth quarter there, if it kept going, we could have kept going too. It would have been that way. And when you look at the games against Penn State over the years, it's kind of played out that way. Where we really won the game in the fourth quarter. So that was the recipe. That was what we talked about going into the game. We had an idea it would be just like that, and that's the way it turned out.
Rivals, 97.1 The Fan.
Right. It seems from the outside like your team has done a good job of taking that win the moment mentality and not taking anything for granted. So I know that what the answer is to this really, the next 3 weeks are not the toughest games on your schedule, and what's at the fourth week there.
Mm-hmm.
You have other distractions with playoff and all that stuff coming out now. Do you change at all? Are you going to discuss 1 week at a time more? How do you manage this stretch when it's not as significant necessarily as November 26th?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is that we've always said it's about us. So why does that change this week? It doesn't matter. Last week going into Penn State, it was about us. It was about our preparation. I think that's the first thing. So if that's the case, then let's just focus on us and getting better. I think the second thing is, you have to continue to do what you're doing and get better every week. If you don't, not only do you show weakness, but you set yourself up for problems down the road. And I think that when you have a problem or you lose a game, maybe it's something you did that week, but maybe it's something you did the weeks leading up to it. So for us, our goals are still our goals. And if we don't maximize every single minute of the day this week, then it doesn't matter. And listen, it's a Big Ten matchup. It's on the road. Fitz does an unbelievable job. I know maybe they don't have the record that they want to, but we got to go play football, and we want to play at a high level. That's the goal here. So it, again, really shouldn't matter who we're playing against. And the competitive stamina is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of the season. And we'll continue to reiterate that this week.
You say that it's about us. How do you evaluate a Tuesday to tell you that no matter who you play on Saturday, that's showing up?
I think it starts with energy. I think it starts with, you know, how guys are running. I think how guys are hitting the pad level, the juice in practice, and then I think it's the execution. So I mean, if you look at the energy and you look at the execution, you know, at the end of the day, you can kind of check that box. I thought we had good practice last week, and that doesn't need to, that can't change this week. It doesn't matter. The focus has to be on us. So we'll look at those two things.
Fourth row middle, Tony German, Buckeye Hub.
Ryan, why didn't you run the ball out of the pistol more? Different question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you look and see any consistent reason for the delay of games?
Yeah, the crowd noise certainly was an issue. In the red area, we were trying to check a couple plays, and because of all the communication issues right there, we could have done it a lot faster. One of them early in the game, I checked the play, and I shouldn't have done that early. It was loud, it was crazy, so that's on me. On the false starts down there, which seemed to be more of the issue than it was the delayed game. What was happening was, you know, we were tapping the center once we were ready, and then Luke would give the indicator, and then we'd snap the ball. Well, on both of those plays, the nose guard jumped off sides. Well, Cade Stover's looking down at the ball to see when he's going to, you know, go block the linebacker who's blitzing off the edge in a zero pressure. So he's looking in at the ball, but he's got to go block this guy coming off the edge in a zero pressure in this type of environment. And both times when that guy jumped into the neutral zone, he jumped. Oh, quite honestly, I thought that that's a penalty on the defense, but the rule says that only the guys that are directly across from the guy who jumped in the neutral zone have protection. So if they move, then it's offsides. They're in the neutral zone. But if it's somebody that's not lined up adjacent to that guy, the false start on the offense. So you can see how that's difficult on Cade. And I do not blame Cade. That's kind of a unique situation, especially when he's off the ball, you know, because we put him in the hip position there. So he's trying to look around, I think Paris or Dewan looking in at the ball in that environment, trying to block this guy over here. And then the guy jumps and he flinches just a little bit. And that's what happened there. So these are the type of things that when you're on the road happen. You know, people say, well, it's a tough environment to play. That's just one example of things that come up.
Ryan, 2 weeks now, you've had the same sort of cornerback rotation with Cam out. How have you felt like that's maybe taken a step forward? Obviously, Iowa didn't throw the ball a ton, Penn State much more. How have you liked what you've gotten there from the corner?
Yeah, I thought Penn State, played well at receiver, and they made some good plays. But I thought we were there again, and I thought that the corner play was better. Certainly some things that we want to get better at, but looking forward to getting Cam back. But at the same time, good to see Jordan Hancock get back in there. Good to see JK getting more reps under his belt. Good to see Denzel getting into a little bit of a rhythm. There's certain things that we got to get better at, but they're starting to play more and more. And that was really the first full game we've played on defense. Even the Notre Dame game, I think, was under 50 plays. So great to see all those guys get a bunch of reps. And the more they play, the better they're going to be.
It's not just passing yards and receiving yards that you guys look at when you're evaluating how each guy played. It's beyond the stats.
Yeah. Everybody has a different grading system on how they grade their players, but we also don't want to give up yards. So yeah, I mean, that's something we look at too. I mean, we're proud in what we do, but yeah, I mean, if you're there and a guy makes an amazing catch, you get a minus. If you're there and you get beat by 2 steps and a guy drops it, you still get a minus. So you have to make the play. And so I think if that's what you mean, like in terms of yards or what's going on in the game, yeah, we still grade it according to what we see.
Right next door, Andy Andrews, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Yes, Ryan. It seems like some of the more outside hitting runs were a bit more efficient at the start of the year. I mean, Travion's big run came on a run that hit right up the middle on Saturday. Is it something that defenses are doing different, or a difference in execution? What's made that difference?
I think when you look at each of them, they're a little bit different. Each style of team that we play has a different style up front. There were certainly some runs that we could have blocked better. There were some runs that were blocked very well. So, we just got to continue to work at it and swing at it and get more efficient at it. But, there's nothing in there that's just glaring like, oh my God, we can't run the ball outside, or we can't block these guys, or, we can't read the hole. I mean, it sounds kind of like loser talk, but it's true. It was kind of one guy in each play, but that's how it works in football. And so we can clean it up, and we have to clean it up to get more efficient early in the game, because that's when it's at its hardest, especially the first down. That's always the hardest. Once we get going, usually we do okay. Too many 3-and-outs, and we could have done a better job early in the game. I thought we got some real good movement late in the game.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Obviously, you guys have had a lot of success when you guys go tempo, especially that last drive. I think TJ hits Marvin hits Mecca, and then you guys score on that. But you can't do that every time, obviously. What are you gauging when you want to go fast like that versus when you want to slow things down and maybe be more check with me?
Well, I think it's a tool. And I think you've seen when we've kind of relied on that all the time, then we get into a situation where short yardage, red zone, different situations, we've come up a little dry. When we don't have that, then you can get a little stagnant. So having the ability to change tempos, get in and out of personnel, do those types of things are tools that you need to go win these games. And in that moment, you saw a lot of different things that on offense we did. We were spread out, we were throwing it, we got into big sets when we had to, 4-minute goal line. We had a 3rd down and 1 that we didn't convert that, I still haven't gotten over, but I think you're seeing a little bit of that diversity. And so I think it's the most efficient when you use it as a tool and a change up, then it's something you do all the time.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Tyleek Williams played, bigger role on Saturday. He made some big plays. Is there something you saw from him maybe in the week leading up to that trusted you guys to play him in a bigger role?
Yeah, well, we played 80 plays on defense. So anytime you play that many, we're going to rotate anyway. So he's going to get reps. But I thought he's been practicing better. You've heard that come out of the defensive room. You've heard it from Larry now that he's been practicing better. And then the 4th down play that he had was excellent. The sack that he had was excellent. I think that Larry did a nice job in that game of rotating those guys, especially when they were playing with a little bit of tempo, play 4 and 5, wholesale change, 4 fresh bodies, sack. I mean, I think that makes a huge difference when you can do that. And Tyleek is very talented, but I think he's really learning the game more and more every week. But I think that whole room had a great day. But one thing I recognized after the first 3rd down catch to Marvin on the sideline, I think Tyleek was right there with Teron and those guys, and they were like pointing 1st down, and they were like up on the sideline. There was just a great energy on that sideline, and they were leading the way on it. And certainly, you saw what those guys did, but it started with their attitude, and that makes a difference when you're on the road, when you're positive and you're leading.
4th row left, Jacob Bench, the Lantern.
Yeah, hey Ryan, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a non-football question. Just with November now, campus gets busy with election season and whatnot. Just how often do you see your players maybe nowadays be politically aware, maybe use their platforms? I'm not sure how often NIL maybe plays a part in it, but how often do you see your players maybe get politically active?
I think it happened more during the presidential election than it did, in between. And I think maybe more in the off season than during the season. But our guys are very educated and they have strong opinions. But I think the thing that's great about the game of football is you have guys in that room from all kinds of different backgrounds. You have guys from the islands. You have guys from different parts of the world, Australia, Germany, Seattle, the West Coast, East Coast, Texas, Florida. You got guys from the farm. You got guys from inner city. You got guys from country clubs, all over the place. But they're all in that room together with all kinds of different backgrounds. But I think the thing that I've really learned to appreciate is they really do appreciate where other guys are coming from, whether it's political beliefs or just backgrounds in general. And they do share. And I think it's neat. I think that's what's special about the game of football.
Deep left, Justin Holdrock, WCMH.
Going back to Cade, you mentioned him picking up the 0 block pass. He did a double block with Trayvon's touchdown, and he was rewarded with the touchdown. I know that's the goal of the tight end to do all 3, but to see him do all 3 and do it well, even after a couple of missed bubble screen blocks, what does that show about him and his season that he's had?
Listen, Cade, it was unbelievable on Saturday, and you saw his play. He had 78 yards catching. He had the touchdown. But his blocking on the touchdown, I mean, he took 2 guys, like you said, on the backside of that zone play. But it was his leadership on the sideline. I mean, he never wavered. He was right there. He's been like that all along. And, for us to get that turnover with JT, come back, throw it to him and then him break those tackles. It was just kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, this all makes sense right now because he deserved that moment after all the hard work that he's been through. And he does a lot of the dirty work the tight ends do. He embraces that, but he has a lot of versatility, and it's making him more and more valuable every day. And he's become more and more of a weapon. I thought he was a mismatch against a linebacker in that game. And I think CJ found that matchup several times. So, he's blocking at a high level and running routes at a high level. And like you said, he can protect. So you can do those three things. Any team in America is going to want you.
Deep left, Brendan Blumen, Buckeyes Now.
Coach, I'm thinking back to the last 3 games that were tight in the fourth quarter. Obviously, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Utah. And CJ's performances in the fourth quarter of those games, I mean, not only has he not turned the ball over, he's hardly thrown an incomplete pass. Is there something about the way when you watch him during the course of a game, like, does he have a different look in his eye? How does he lock in for big moments when the spotlight's the brightest, because he seems to perform well?
Every game is its own season. Every game is its own story. And here, not every game's the same. What I mean by that is, there's games where, our guys aren't playing in the fourth quarter. It's just the way it is. Not that we prepare for that, but that happens that way. Then there's games where we know it's going to be a 4-quarter battle all the way to the end. And, we got to play that way. And I think for CJ, understanding that the number one thing is winning is something in the offseason that he's embraced. And that doesn't mean throwing for X number of yards, although it happens naturally. He ended up throwing for 350-something yards. What was he, 26 of 33, and played unbelievable in the fourth quarter. But I mean, he took care of the football. And that's something that, in some of these games, it's like, how important is taking care of the football? It is huge. And he did that. But in the fourth quarter of those games, when it was time to put the pedal to the metal and go get it, he went and got it. And that's winning football. And I think you have to play your best football in the fourth quarter. And that's what you're mentioning right there.
Far left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
When Chip was first repping just a little bit at running back in preseason, I think you used the term emergency to describe his role as a potential running back then. Obviously, he's been in that room now for a couple of weeks. So where is he now in relation to if he needed a second running back? Where are he and Dallin? What do you think you can get out of him as a running back?
Yeah, he's a running back full time as of now, and he's learned the offense. So he was ready to go in the game on Saturday if we needed him. But I think even after one more week of preparation, he'll be more ready. So he and Dallin will be prepared to play in the game.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, I want to ask you about two of the themes you've talked about almost every week: competitive stamina. That game decided well after 3 hours had been played already, in the last 30 minutes that you're out there. And then complimentary football, getting those turnovers and punching them in. Did that game reinforce kind of those two themes and just what you preach to your players, I guess?
Yeah, and that's what winning football and games like that takes. We can't lose focus on that, because as we get into these games in November, we're going to need all three phases. It doesn't matter if you get X number of yards or hold them to X number of yards. What matters is that you win the game. And what does it take to win the game? And we talked about the plan to win. And that's our focus. But yeah, the competitive stamina part of it is something that, we can't take the pedal off the metal, and we got to roll, and we got to get better every week, and we got to embrace every single week that way. And every once in a while, you just got to remind our guys and remind everybody in the building what's at stake, and what happens when you don't, show up on Saturday. And these guys, I say it all the time, are still 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys. Some of them are 22, I guess. Maybe there's a 23 mixed in, but that's just the way, we have to go. And you have to remind yourself every now and again, because this is the most competitive environment there is in the world. And every time you're on that field, they're trying to take you out and take what's yours. So you have to approach every day that way. And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And then, like you said, the complementary football, we need all three phases. Even in special teams this week, we asked some guys to play on special teams. Some guys who hadn't typically been on special teams did. And so, there wasn't anything specific that happened there, that I guess won or lost the game, but overall it was solid.
Front row middle, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you mentioned Denzel Corner getting into more of a rhythm lately. What are the things that are standing out to you that he's doing on film?
Well, I think the first thing is he's practicing consistently. He's playing every play at a high level. You don't, you know, when you have an injury like that, it takes you out for a little while. You have to get yourself back into playing shape, and I think he's doing that. And I think his feet are moving well. I think he's covering. I think he's, you know, now has, I guess for him probably 6 games or so under his belt playing in the system. So I think when you add all those things up, you're starting to see him get better and better.
Hey, Coach, there's a lot of excitement and emotion from you revealing that JT was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week yesterday. Can you talk about that moment and the camaraderie within this group?
Yeah, that just kind of happened organically. We do our champions meeting every Sunday. We go through the things that we talk about that are important on offense, defense, and special teams on a Tuesday, which we'll be doing here at 2:30. We review that to see if those things get done. We go through the plan to win to see, what we did in the plan to win, what we need to do better at. And then we recognize those who are champions. And it's a big deal to grade out a champion. It's a huge deal. There's so much that goes in to getting on that field and grading over 80% to be a champion. And so when we call out each guy, everybody in that room is clapping. And if they're not, it's a big deal. So there's a lot of energy in the room. But when it got to JT as player of the game on defense, that was the longest list I think we would ever had. So I took a deep breath, and then the guys really like it when there's a list of things that they've done in that game. And so, we were just going through it, and the guys were into it, and you could just feel it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was just one of those things, and the guys went nuts. And certainly, one of the most historic games, I guess, in college football. I guess that's not an exaggeration to say that because of what he did. So it deserved that type of excitement.
Are you still hopeful JSN could play for you this season, including the postseason?
Absolutely. Yes.
If he can't go, given the productivity of what you have now, can you achieve your goals without him?
I think we can. But at the same time, we'd love to have him back, as I'm sure you can imagine. But, this team is working hard, and, that's why we build depth, because you just don't know. And I'm sure that there's more adversity coming our way. So, we're going to rely on our leadership, and we're into November now. So you just never know what's coming. And I think we've built up some hardness to us, and we got to keep building on that as well.
Ryan, we've talked to you a few times about how sometimes you have to separate result from process. And you said, you ran the ball at a time out of pistol, 4 or 5 were efficient. Is it still good process to do anything 100% of the time, whether that's throw or pass out of a given formation?
If it's working, yeah. I mean, I think what you have to do is you always look to see, why are you doing something? When you put the back in the offset, well, you give away everything. You can only really run so many things, right? Or the protection's going one way. So almost every defense is based on the offset of the back. The minute the back goes back there, everything's equal again. And, they don't know if you're running right. They don't know if you're running left. Now they can play a little more downhill, but then, as you can see in the Iowa game, we lined up back there. We got a huge touchdown play because he was back there, and they thought it was a run. But now, if you're looking at the numbers and you say, well, every time you're in a certain formation, you're not getting anything out of it. Yeah, move on. I think Trey does like being back a little deeper. I think that gives us something, and it forces defenses to play more honest. The runs hit a little harder downhill. So we take all those types of things into consideration.
I don't think the concern about that maybe the fan base has is why do you get in the pistol? I think it makes sense, everything you just explained. I think it's more, why don't you, there was no play action pass at a pistol.
I know, but if you're 4 out of 5 efficient, then what's the problem?
Well, I think half of your plays under center were negative or 0 runs.
No, one of them was.
From under center?
Oh, no, the one from under center was very well blocked, and it was a really clean play. So that's not the reason why, is because we line up in the pistol that teams are ganging up on one way or the other. So I don't quite understand any of that.
So the inefficiencies running the ball the last 2 weeks, how much of that you wouldn't attribute any of that to perhaps tipping your hand by formation?
No,
in terms of your play?
no, not at all.
Right next door, Doug Maurice, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, when you're going on the road to a stadium where there is a shared tunnel, do you have?
Just you got to go now. I'm going to go down a bad road here.
Do you have
Got a few more weeks.
any concerns about that going in, and do you have any preparation to try to avoid any potential problems in the tunnel?
Yeah, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to comment on that.
Is that something you think about?
Yeah. We try to plan ahead to make sure there's no issues.
Yeah. Here, separate tunnels. Do you like this setup at Ohio Stadium? But you guys do sometimes, right? You got the cross on the field to the opposite tunnel. Do you have ever concerns or preparations for, hey, let's make sure there's not anything in the crossover of the two teams?
Yeah, we try to do the best we can to make sure there's no problems. Yeah.
Is that? I mean, obviously, it's their thing. You don't want to get involved. I understand that. But, it's not great for college football when you have stuff like that. Sometimes there are logistical things that the logistics can contribute to situations sometimes that you didn't build the stadium, but you have to deal with the results of it, right? I mean, it is something, it must be it crosses your mind at times to prepare for every contingency.
Yes.
I get it.
I just don't want to go there.
I understand.
No,
It's a little hot right
no, yeah, they're
Front row-
good questions though.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
It's really tempting to follow up on that. I won't. We know Northwestern's had its troubles, but they have a really good offensive tackle, and so do you. We have two of them, but specifically on Paris Johnson. Skronsky's really good for them. How well has Paris played for you?
Well, I think he's getting better every week. I think that he started off moving from guard to tackle, and the more he plays, the more confidence he gets. I know he's, all those guys want to get better in all areas. The run, the protection. As we start to get against better and better players, the challenges become more and more. And then, playing that way for 4 quarters, I thought that he played well in the fourth quarter. Looking back, I thought that the protection was excellent, especially in the fourth quarter. That first drive that CJ hit Marvin on the big dig there, like at 15 to 18. I mean, they had a lot of time right there, and that's a long time to hold blocks. And Paris is a big part of that. So I think he's getting better. He's nowhere near where he wants to be, but the more game reps he plays, the more comfortable he's getting.
Giving up a sack this year?
I don't know.
And final question, front row rank, Tim Maine, Letterman row on 3.
Yeah. By the way, did you ever get caught in the Sumner Tunnel on your way to Logan?
What's that?
Did you ever get caught in the Sumner Tunnel on your way to Logan?
Absolutely.
Running late? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you know the tunnel. Is there a calm and a clarity and maybe even an enhanced accuracy with CJ with the game on the line in these third and fourth quarters? It seemed like it was that case again on Saturday. I mean, there's something to call a play, but to throw strikes like he did on that like 3rd and 10 and then to Mecca. And I mean, what have you noticed about him that's special? And does it even hit you in the moment that this guy has stepped up a notch?
I don't know how else to say it other than, like you said, he's got that look and he's got a feel. And in that moment, he had it in that game. I don't think, he's done anything extraordinary, but that's something that I studied for a long time a few years ago. Is like, when they say guys are playing clutch, they're not all of a sudden playing better than their best. They're just being, you think about Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Reggie Jackson, the whole Roy Hobbs myth and all that stuff. It was people all of a sudden just don't do superhuman things in those moments. What they do is they go back to their level of training. And I think that's what he's done. He just sticks with his reads. He keeps it simple, but that moment doesn't get too much for him. He's able to stay even keeled and he doesn't press. But at the same time, he knows what's on the line. And, I think he likes saying, hey, jump on my back. I got this. And you feel that, it's like in those moments, you just get out of the way and let him go play.
Like the second round has started now. Let me ask one quickie. Cade Stover, when you were sitting there here in June, did you see this coming? I mean,
well, this started back a couple years ago when he and I both sat down and shared my thoughts on what I saw. I don't know if he believed it or didn't believe it, but but then he jumped in with 2 feet, and we knew it was going to be a couple year investment. It's the same thing that G. Scott's going through right now. Joe Royer's going through right now, all the tight ends. And then there was a point where he wanted to have more of an impact on the team. So he wanted to go play linebacker in the Rose Bowl because he felt like that's his mentality. Did that. And I thought he brought a level of an edge to that whole bowl practice because he was there. And then, he had to embrace doing that same thing on the offensive side, because on defense, you just feel like you can be a little bit more of, your inner self over there. But he then took that approach to offense, and now you're seeing what he can do. He was a very good basketball player in high school, very good athlete, tough. And now all the time he put in is now paying off, and you're seeing the best version of Cade. And it's did I know he would be like this? No, but I didn't have any expectations either. But I knew what he could be, and he's a special player.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, folks, we're going to open up the floor for questions with Coach Jim Knowles. You got about 15 minutes here. Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Defensive touchdowns are never a bad thing, but it also means you've got to go right back on the field. How do you quickly kind of transition on to the next series of plays when those type of things happen? You've always had this
Yeah, I mean,
get the ball back to offense.
you can feel it. I mean, I know when I'm calling plays or, communicating downstairs, you feel like that rush and then a dropout, and it's just like I always talk about, it's just habits, they have to remember that defense is right now proposition. You got to go out and stop them. It doesn't matter what happened the play before, but it is something that, you have all your coaches kind of in their ear trying to get them to re-energize. And I think it's just human nature that it's hard to do.
Right behind him, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
And we saw Tyleek play a bigger role in this past week's game. Just what do you maybe see from him leading up to that game that enabled him to have his biggest game?
He's got really freakish athletic ability for his size. So with Tyleek, it's been just about developing consistency in practice, so that he earns those reps and those opportunities. He's been doing that more and more in practice, and I always knew he had the ability.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Jim, you've talked before about, I guess, your tolerance for how many big plays you want to give up in a game, and I can't recall when you gave up against Penn State.
Too many.
Well, what I'm wondering is when you have the takeaways you had and your defense scores, in your mind, do those things cancel each other out? Like if you have 7 big plays, does it get knocked down to 4 if you have 4 takeaways?
No. They still all count, and they still all need to be dealt with. We had a few too many against Penn State, and we've dealt with them. It's never okay, but I guess you can build the positive out of it when it happens, and you're doing a lot of good other things, and you win the game. You can take it and show why it happened and how we can fix it. But it doesn't even it out. That would be like, I always thought, well, if the defense scores a touchdown, really shouldn't it come off the offense's score? You know what I mean? So it would be like, if it was if we were up 14-0 and we got a touchdown, shouldn't it be 14 to -7? You know what I mean? Like the defense always gets you get the short end of that stick, but there is no balance, and that's defense. Once you start thinking like that, that's the wrong mentality in my book. You got to win every play.
Fourth row right, Cameron Keith Robinson, The Athletic.
Jim, Ronnie had a few nice plays in pass coverage and kind of in the middle with that secondary. We talk a lot about the corners, but just the safeties, the way they clog things up in the middle and close passing lanes pretty quickly, mixed with the linebackers. And how would you evaluate how they've done in that particular part of their game?
For first year, new system, I think they've work, in terms of doing the things that you're talking about, defending the middle of the field, sitting on routes, having that confidence to, you have to like sit on a cliff there, and not back up because there's too much space. Once you do, could get bodied out. Good players will make plays on you if you back up. So I think they've really taken to it, and they hold their ground pretty well in the middle.
We talk about complementary football. How does that them? I mean, in the middle, closing passing lanes help the defensive line? Because I imagine quarterback season, you have to hesitate, and then it gets more.
Yep, it's all part of the disguise, all part of making the quarterback hold the ball for that extra second. It's coverage and rush working together. We talk about it all the time. The plays that you're talking about, we pull up, we show the example, we show the quarterback, clutching it for a second, and then our rush gets there. I think it's really the key to pass defense.
Right behind him, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Jim, just how unique is it to see a defensive end the size of JT break on a ball like a corner?
Very unique. You remember, I'm a guy that's worked my way up, so being around someone like JT with those kind of skills, it's I've been around a guy or two in the past who has some of those unique athletic traits, but not at that size, and we saw it in practice. We actually saw him do it a couple times in practice. So I don't think any of us were surprised, but it's good to see him get those plays and then get the acknowledgement, that he deserves. It's not easy. He's a guy who's a big time prospect, and then, a lot of pressure from all different areas that he should have this, he should have that, this many sacks. And he's been able to keep his head on straight, and his family's been great and supportive, and we've been supportive. So because we knew it was there, it's just a matter of time. So it's good to see him get that recognition.
To you trusting the defensive end to drop back into coverage, is there a certain level that you have to see from those guys to be able to trust them to do that in your coverage?
Yeah, you put it in as part of the system because it is something that I like to have, as a change up, because it changes the entire structure for a quarterback. Then I think what you're talking about is how much you call it is based on how well the guys do, how you match that with your personnel. And it was a nice thing to see. We actually called it a few times and made the quarterback hold the ball or got the interception.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Is that the best performance by a DN you've ever seen? How do you describe what he did Saturday to others?
Yes, it is the best. It's not describable, I guess, in just dominating every phase of the game, playing like a linebacker in terms of his ball skills, and then the rush and the strip and the eye-hand coordination. I mean, that is something that is different, and you just don't see it. And he's a guy who has it.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals.
Jim, I'm sure there's an element of maybe easing or building the workload up for Jordan Hancock over the last couple of weeks. From what you've seen as he's got back maybe to closer to full health, what tells you he might be able to do more for you down the stretch?
Yeah, the film. I mean, and you're right. It is a process. I think I haven't been a baseball coach, but it is like a pitcher. That's why they call it a pitch count, I guess, because a guy can taper off as the game goes on if he hasn't built up that stamina. So, we're gradually increasing him and looking for more reps from him this week.
Right next door, Tim May, Letterman row on 3.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sit in and ask a question, make you a feel good question kind of thing. But I wanted to ask you this: when you have two players who end up on a guy and he makes the catch and he curls away from both of them, the call there looks pretty sound about not letting this guy get out of the gate, but he went anyway. And then of course Tommy, You know, the guy runs through his tackle attempt in the backfield. I think it was on that 4th and goal play. So he was in. So where do you go from there to, you know what I mean, to make sure they make the play the next time?
No, you break. Yeah, you break that. You do break it down in detail. You know, in terms of vicing the ball, it's, you know, when we had the 2 guys there, and you know, I call it owning your hip. Like, it's okay, if you're outside and you miss, make sure he goes inside. If you're inside and you miss, make sure he goes outside. And that is not something you just like. You don't come back that week and say, you know, oh, we need to start working on vice tackle, because we actually call that a drill, vice tackle. You know, I mean, it is a defensive fundamental. Now, and we've had plenty of good ones, but when it goes wrong, you can say, okay, guys, here's vice tackle. This is why we do that drill. And then with Tommy, yeah, those plays, right. I mean, there's a roll tackle, you know, like a single leg takedown. And those are more difficult to do in when they happen quick like that, like right on the snap. You know, you saw him do it plenty of times on the perimeter, like when you have more time to run, where you can go in there and roll the time. But when it happens that fast, that's what he needed to do, and he knows that. You know, because if you're up too high, you could slide off. You know, you got to be able to go low and roll, but it's just difficult to get in that position. So those are drills that we do all the time, and we show the good examples along with the ones that didn't go quite as well, so that the guys are more motivated to keep doing the drill.
But you know why I asked that? Because those were 2 of the 4 touchdowns. You know,
Mhm.
and you have them dead to rights, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, that just means we shouldn't stop practicing. Right.
Right next door, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, the first interception that JT has, where he's able to drop in coverage and jump the route, is to have that athleticism. How much does that enhance what you can do as a play caller to give you more options in a toolbox when you have a player who has sort of that multifaceted?
Yeah, it does, and it allows you to disguise better too. Because here's a guy who could rush and be a threat, and everybody knows how good of a rusher he is. And now he's a guy who can drop into coverage and actually make plays. I mean, I think people drop D linemen a lot, but you know, they don't make a lot of plays. You do it maybe just to cloud up a window or give the quarterback a different look, but you know, we've got guys who can actually make plays, and he showed that.
Right next door, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You've been effusive in your praise of Lathan. He's clearly now probably the guy. You talked about how he just kind of is so instinctive. What about his personality in terms of just, you know, coming back from the injury and just playing as recklessly as he does, given, you know, that he had that kind of injury?
Yeah, I think he is one of those guys that at least I've never seen, never shows fear, never shows frustration or fatigue. You know, he's just one of those guys. And I'm sure, you know, when he was a kid, he was one of those kids who just kind of threw his body around. You know, his parents could, I mean, some guys just have that ability to, you know, run through a wall and not be fazed by it. And he's one of those guys.
Far left, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
I guess this might be a little bit similar to what Joey just asked you, but like you've been talking so much about you implementing your system. Does your system account for game records like what JT just did, what Zach was doing the week before? Is that sort of in a separate folder that you've been waiting to use? Like how, because you're talking about like this is maybe your first experience with players to that level. So how do you now fold that into what you've already been in?
Yeah, to me, it's part of the system that gets accentuated and planned for more is when you have those kind of players who can do it one-on-one. You know what I mean? So I think it allows you to do other things in the back end when you're not, you know, trying to create something yourself with a call as much as you're, you know, you do other things, double somewhere, play a different coverage, do other things when you know that there's guys who can just win one-on-one. You know, it gives you more versatility.
Second row left, We got time for just a couple more, folks. Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, I want to ask you about competitive stamina, something Coach Day preaches quite a bit. About 9 minutes to go in the game, you guys are ahead by 2, and they've got the ball with the chance to go down and regain the lead. But JT makes that play. He made another play, the interception later on. Just the way you guys were able to play the full 4 quarters, you gave up some big plays along the way, but they had the stamina to stay with it and finish the game. Penn State blinked, and you guys won the game.
Yeah, I mean, goes back to, you said it, what Coach has instilled here, and Mick and his staff in the weight room. I think we benefit from that as assistant coaches, because you're handed these guys who are trained to precision and trained with that mindset. So now it is our job. We did give up some explosive plays, and like I've talked to them about that. And what you do is you review those, and I take responsibility, and then the guys get to see that. So what happens is they're built with this competitive stamina, and when things go wrong, as long as we as coaches don't lose our mind, because I've been around that before, where coaches blow a gasket when things go wrong. Well, that's leadership. I mean, our job as coaches as leaders is to be steady, and they see that, and the players see that, and they model that because they've already been trained that way. And I think you get the result that we all hope for.
Fourth row middle, Tony Gertman, Buckeye Huddle.
Jim, what is what's going on in the headset and up in the press box or in the coach's box when you're seeing JT do all of these things at all of these crazy moments? What's your reaction? What's the reaction of everything going on in the headset?
It's really pretty quiet, because I mean, everybody puts their, when you put your microphone up. So, because when you're a play caller, you really need that quiet. So you don't hear the field, so it's really pretty quiet. I'm sure they're all down there celebrating and going crazy, and that's what they should do. I enjoy it for about 3 seconds, and then I have to start thinking about, okay, we got to get back on the field, and what, the chess match, and what the next play is going to be. So the players and the coaches on the field get to enjoy it, but upstairs it's on to the next play.
And final questions, deep right, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Jim, speaking of the competitive stamina and all that, does that make the final drive of the day that much more irritating and frustrating for you when the game is, for all intents and purposes, over, but then the defense sort of exhaled and they score pretty quickly and easily?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times as coaches, you are, it's a fight between you and human nature. You know what I mean? That happens. And that is my job, is to train them to perform on every series, no matter what the circumstance. So yeah, it's frustrating. It's also a teaching moment, I don't ever like doing that, no matter what the score is, no matter who's in the game. But like I said, that just shows me, let's not cancel practice. Let's keep practicing.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
What's that? All right, folks, we're going to open up the floor for Coach Hartline here for about 15 minutes. Thank you, Coach. Front row left, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Dave, true freshman wide receivers. Just how are they coming along? If one or two of those guys needed to step up in a big game, how confident are you in those guys? They're doing well. I think that I think as of late they're gaining more and more momentum. They need to step up. Yeah, I think their continual growth. I think the biggest thing with those guys is just
really seeing the guys around them that they're surrounded by and continue to buy in and continue to improve. That's definitely happening. I think a couple guys are really starting to kind of come out of that group, in my opinion. So that being said, there's a lot of football left, and what they do over the next 2 months will be critical for them going into next spring. And I have a pretty good feel about where they're at and where they're going. I think they're starting to, sharpen their teeth a little bit on special teams, and that's been important. Always has been here. So for them to continue to do that, I think that'll be a good starting point for them.
Brian, you always knew there was going to be a development process with Julian, and then it hit a bunch of setbacks along the way. How close is he to what you think he can become, and how far has he already come?
Yeah, Julian has done a great job, as you guys have seen. So, I think that he's got to continue to progress. I think the one thing he'd probably say is he's gotten so much better, but there's a difference between getting better in the practice field and then taking that to the game and applying it to the game, and then the amount of reps you get on game day, just that body of work builds. And so, once you get to a point where you can do it, then the conversation becomes how often. And I think that he's continuing to grow in that facet. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. You guys all see it. But the more and more opportunities he gets, the more and more plays he makes, the more momentum he's going to continue to build. And he's only scratching the surface. What he's capable of, I'm not even sure I know what he's capable of, because he's so athletic. He works so hard. And there's really not much he can't do. He's got to continue to stay healthy. He's doing a great job with that. But I think the sky's the limit for him.
Thank you, Jerry. You don't coach this guy on a day-to-day basis, but you help coordinate the plays, the design, the passing scheme, et cetera. How much of a surprise or just whatever you want to call it of Cade Stover's rise this year from in June when you're thinking about, can this guy even be that, game breaker kind of tight end to what we saw on Saturday, for example, another great example of him catching the ball. And
yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. I think Cade's doing a phenomenal job. I mean, where he was last spring to where he is now, that whole tight end room, frankly, is taking a huge step, not just Cade. So, but what he's brought to our offense, has been so critical. I'm not so sure. Again, not that the whole room's taking a step, but Cade's been a huge part of that, and we probably wouldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for Cade and how much he's grown. And a lot of credit to that, that room and Coach Wilson. And so, yeah, he's developed into a great player. I think he'll tell you he's still got a long ways to go, but some big plays on Saturday. He's made big plays all year, and he's got to continue to, ascend if we want to get to where we want to get to.
Yeah, Brian, how much attention have you been able to pay to Sam Wiggles, a big season for Ohio, and how proud are you of a guy like that who obviously you've helped so much?
Yeah, Wiggy's killing it, and I don't know if he's still tied for the MAC touchdowns. I think he was, but I wouldn't say we're too shocked here. I mean, we gave him raving reviews when he was trying to figure out his next steps and what we could get done here, and unfortunately it didn't work out here. But we always knew what he was and what he was capable of, and I'm just glad he's having a blast. Obviously, we talk probably every couple of weeks or so, but social media gives you that platform where you feel like you talk like every day. But no, he's killing it. We all love Sammy. We all follow each other. His family's great, so can't be more happy for him.
Game and repertoire, while you had him here on campus.
What stood out? I mean, probably, I can give you all the normal responses if you want, but lunch pail guy, deceptively fast, no, I think that he was a good route runner. He really was. He was very consistent, always did his job. And that's the thing. What's amazing about football is, it's a team sport. And when you say that, like, you don't always need extraordinary, ability to be a huge part of an offense. And I think those that are the most consistent and those that, just do their job consistently over time with great efficiency, end up being great players. And I think, Sam embodied that. And, when he left, we definitely felt his loss, but we root for him from afar for sure.
Yeah, Coach. want to ask, you guys had 60 plays on offense this past week, and it looks like more times than not, you're going with your lead three quite a bit. And I know Xavier got in there for a few extra plays, maybe it seemed like the maybe he normally plays. How important is it to develop a fourth and fifth guy if you take into account you don't know if you're ever going to have Jackson or when that may happen? Just is there too much of the top three guys? Is that a diminishing return maybe? Those guys have too big of a load.
I would say that the development happens more during the week than it does on Saturdays, in my opinion. But that being said, I think it's really important to have multiple guys being available, and I think that we have that. And I think that for Jaden Ballard to step in, for Xavier Johnson to step in when roles are needed, it's really critical. Just as it's important for Cade Stover and G. Scott in the tight end room to step in. In the slot or inside as well. So we do a lot of things throughout the week, not necessarily maybe on Saturdays, but I'd say the ammunition and what we have, availability to us is being built throughout the week.
You have to go to 4 and 5. Xavier made the play against Notre Dame, so that's kind of endemic, but you feel pretty comfortable with those.
Oh, I feel great with those guys. And I think that, we'll continue to move forward how we're operating now. And, as the scheme allows, we'll move guys around and whatnot, but we have a bunch of guys that do really, really good things. And I think, we're on a good track right now.
You lost 2 first rounders last year, and then Jackson came in as the best receiver in the country, and you've had him for 60 snaps. And Marvin and Emeka have made that look kind of irrelevant that you lost that much production. Now you're not going to sit here and praise him because it's not right. But what have you liked and what have you not liked about the way those two have stepped up into these roles and emerged the way they have?
I think it's a lot to like. I would say that, they hold themselves to a standard that's higher than we probably try to hold them to. And for them, they would probably tell you that they expected nothing different. And a lot of the reasons why they're where they're at is because probably that expectation. And I think it's not an unrealistic expectation. It's an earned expectation. I think they've proven to themselves over time through practice, to their peers, that the way they're playing now reflects how they practice and how they work along with Julian. So, I'd say that, there's a lot of credit to the room and the guys that choose the room and the guys that develop and push each other, and the success they're having is, carrying the torch that Chris and Garrett then carried from the guys before them. So not to shrug it off or not highlight it, but that's kind of the expectation and standard they've developed, and they're just trying to carry the torch.
That you haven't liked?
I would say no, you love it all. I mean, you're always finding ways to improve, and believe it or not, there's a lot of ways to improve. But to say you don't like it, I mean, that's not really the take I would have. I was just things we have to improve on, and then like we said with Julian, it's you've done it now. Now, how often? And when the big moments come, are you going to do it then? And so we're always not tricking ourselves, but convincing ourselves that's that moment right now, and we're trying to replicate that in practice.
Brian, did you pull a hamstring on that run chasing?
No, believe it or not, I got a slight cramp, but no, I was good.
Well, speaking of hamstrings, how is Jackson doing? Not just physically, but mentally. I know how much he wants to be out there.
Yeah, he's beating himself up a little bit. He's been better this week. I'll say that. I think I could echo what he's saying on, if he was here standing in front, he wants to play it in the worst way, and he's frustrated. That being said, he's done a great job not being a distraction and picking the guys up and staying locked in and FaceTiming before the game on Saturday. Like all those things have been awesome. And but I know as a competitor, he's frustrated and he wants to get back. But I think overall, he's doing okay.
Level of confidence he'll be back by, let's say, when it really matters.
Huge level of confidence.
Bill Landis, Rivals.
Brian, on a couple of the conversions that Marvin had on those slants, it looked like he and CJ kind of adjusted the route depending on the leverage of the corner. How much work goes into a quarterback and receiver being able to trust each other on those kind of plays, especially, you're trying to convert 4th and 7 or you're trying to convert 3rd and 10 in the 4th quarter. Like, those are big moments.
I think trust is just the body of work. It's not necessarily, this particular route. I mean, they spend a lot of time doing things, but I guess, my point of view would just be the overall trust, and then to be able to communicate that on the sideline, lock eyes, understand you're good, yeah, I'm good, then you execute. And I think that they've done a great job with that. I mean, they're pros, and that's sometimes that's just things you can teach it, but that's just earned, and not only earned from themselves but us. I mean, it's just everything. There's so much that goes into that. But that being said, those are some great plays by two great players, and having that is probably important to getting to where we want to get to.
Fifth row right, Spencer Holbrook.
Letterman row.
Letterman row. Thank you.
There you go.
Brian, you played in the NFL for a long time. You played it here with the guy who played for the Colts in the NFL. When you watch Marv work the way he does in those buildings, do you see that level of work ethic and approach that it takes to get to that level? Because it seems like to us, we keep asking about his work ethic, and it seems very professional. But you were the one who actually did it. Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, just call it what it is. It's beyond professional. I mean, there's a lot of professionals that never worked like him, and frankly, there's a lot of guys in our room that works better than pros do. I mean, that's just is what it is. But I think that the goal isn't always just getting there. It's staying there and playing for a long time, and everything these guys embody are giving themselves the best chance. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, there's levels to goals, and I think our guys across the board have different levels to goals than we even talk about. I mean, the NFL, is awesome and all, but they're first focused on their team. They're first focused on making a play when it shows up. Then maybe it's the NFL, and then it's lasting in the NFL for a long time. So the pro comparison is good, but these guys have overachieved that from a work ethic standpoint. So that's in my mind nominal.
Chris, for young guys to watch for a long time. Now you go to Marv for these young guys to watch. I know that you put in the work to help these guys get better, but to have a guy like Chris and then transition immediately to a guy like Marvin for the younger players to watch work, how advantageous is that for you?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, for a coach to just be able to, to point to his peer, and it's one thing to talk about things sometimes, whether it be, technically or, culturally, but to be able to directly show it in person is nothing like anything else. So, like I said, whether it's running a route or whether it's how you handle your business, there's lots of examples, great examples throughout this building, and we're blessed with that. I think that probably the skill for a coach is just identifying that and then correctly communicating that to the other individual. But it's all through this building.
Deep right, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Brian, I know you recruit to the culture of that room, and that's obviously part of what you look for on the trail. But in your time here, what is a normal amount of time for a player to get it? And does that just vary by the person, or is there generally something that happens where you see someone say, "Okay, now I understand"?
Definitely by the person, but and it's not just here. I would say it's probably everywhere. I think that the expectations have continually been sped up. How would Terry McLaurin have fit into that expectation this day and age? I don't even know. Or Paris Campbell, or guys that are very vastly successful now, but maybe weren't by some standards, especially in this room right now, of where they're supposed to be by their end of their freshman year. Like, oh, we're not seeing the freshmen playing as that fresh. Like, what? I literally see you guys write that. So that's mind blowing to me. So, I would say it's definitely by person. Like we talk all the time, right? There's goals and there's paths, and everyone shares goals and probably never shares paths. So Curtis Samuel's path is not Terry McLaurin's, but they were roommates. But I think that, it is indicative of the individual. I think, Jaden Ballard's doing a great job, but on his own path. Then maybe a Mech and Marv that were in the same class. JB is doing a great job, and so is Marvin Mech, but just different and not right, not wrong. But I think to answer your question more decisively, probably, you see that you turn the corner probably into their second year. More consistently towards the end of their freshman year, you kind of see it, whether it shows up on Saturday or not. You don't know. But I would say into the second year, your second spring, you kind of see some plays being made and things happening, and you're like, okay, we have a good future here.
Vocal leaders, because that room traditionally in the last handful of years with guys like Chris and now Marvin and Mecca and Julian are not really generally vocal as far as we see them on the
So that's actually the opposite. You know, Chris was not vocal. Good show of example for sure. I mean, but Julian's been very vocal and he's killing it. And I think you know, Mech's grown in that department. Definitely not Marvin's cup of tea, but you know, but they all do it in their own way. And I think again, there's examples everywhere, and it's just up to the coaches and the peers and to see the examples and again communicate them effectively to who needs it. And because we're surrounded by it all over this building.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, obviously with Jackson out, that kind of amplifies the importance of you guys getting Julian back healthy. How have you seen him grow since he got back in that Toledo game?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a combination of continual confidence, reaffirming what he knows he's capable of. I mean, everyone always thinks as an athlete you're capable of something until you're able to do it. And when those mesh, that's when you kind of see the trajectory kind of start to take off. So that's helped him. You know, I think being able to just operate healthy. I mean, that's, you know, I'm sure you guys like play some golf, like go out there and swing a club when your back's sore. You know, like these guys out here playing football, you know, against some of the best players in the country, and we expect them, you know, to feel great and play great, but you know, things hurt. So, you know, he's doing a great job with that, making huge plays, you know, maximizing opportunities. I don't know if anyone's done it better, you know, and so yeah, I mean, I think the future is bright, and we kind of everyone in this room kind of sees that, and he's been a huge part of what we've done so far this year.
And final question, front row, right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, the receivers here, none of them really dropped very many passes, and I'm sure that's very fundamental for a receiver. But I think that showed that maybe they've dropped 5 all year, which is again really low. What are the factors that go into that? How much is that emphasized? How much is that it's taught? Is that just innate ability? Just curious what kind of leads to that.
I think it's a lot of credits to the way we practice, and not just as receivers, but you know, as a team. You know, we have such a heightened importance on each snap. It best reflects a game, and I think that it's not always the ability on Saturday to make plays. It's just being able to train in that environment, so then when you're in there on Saturday, it feels the same as practice, right? I mean, that's the age-old trick. Making every rep so important that if I can convince myself like this is the rep that wins the game, you know, how would my approach be to that rep? Well, if you have that approach in the game, good outcome, right? So it's just that constant mental, you know, exercise. I think we do a good job of it. I think the coaches do a good job of it. I think the players do a great job of it. So when they're getting reps in practice, there really are game reps. And we say that a lot. There's mental reps, there's physical, you know, there's game reps. I think we do a really good job of doing that. And plus, I mean, as receivers, they've done a great job, you know, spending extra time. I mean, you guys would be shocked on who was probably, no, you wouldn't be shocked, but like, hey, where's the light key after the game at Penn State? Cause we had a drop. He's out here catching balls for 2 hours. Like those are the kind of things these guys are doing that you guys don't see. That just speaks to how they operate and the level they hold themselves to. Yeah. The lights have to get turned on with a key or you can't see in the indoor. So
Hey, Brent.
guys, I'm getting texts. I'm sitting by my fire pit. Like, hey, where's the key at? I'm like, what do you mean the key at? Go home. You know, and they're, you know, so they're catching jugs.
Brent, can I ask you one quickie? You've been around a lot of quarterbacks in your playing career and even at Ohio State since you've been back and stuff. CJ, is he, I don't know, where would you, I'm not going to rate these guys, but describe his calmness or whatever you want to call it when the games have been on the line in these second halves of games, Utah, Notre Dame, you know, I mean, what stands out about that from your vantage point?
Yeah, his calm definitely provides a lot of confidence that you're kind of alluding to. And it's definitely been a growth spot from where he was when he first started, which, you know, anyone would, but he has. You know, some guys just don't. He has. And the guys feel it. He keeps it calm. Lots of confidence coming from him. You know, I would say that, you know, I wouldn't say I'm not the quarterback coach, but you can just feel that maturity and growth on the sideline that I know everyone feels and alludes to more from the O-line. Hey, you're good. And to the receivers, I mean, that's been pretty critical and very palpable when you're on the sideline as a coach and as a player. So what you're hitting on is definitely pretty special from CJ's growth. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what it finally comes down to, right?
Yep. I mean, yeah. I mean, when your number's called, you make the play and keeps making the play. So it's good.
Coach
Coach. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. That's it.
That'll be it, folks. Noah's got class and studies, so we weren't able to get him yet again.
He doesn't really take class.